Hello, everyone. Good morning. Happy Easter. Happy Resurrection Day. We're so glad and grateful that you joined us on this glorious and beautiful Easter morning as we proclaim that Christ is risen, Christ is alive with us and within us. If this is your first time here or it's your first time seeing me up here, my name is Sal Sapienza, and I'm the new pastor here at the United Church of Rowayton. We are an open and affirming congregation of the United Church of Christ, and that means that no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, know that you are welcome here. Today, we are celebrating what we have been waiting for during this whole entire Lenten season, the discovery that the tomb is empty, that death could not contain Jesus, that his light lives on. Our gospel reading for Easter morning comes from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint Jesus. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. And they entered the tomb, and there they saw a young man dressed in a white robe. He was sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be afraid. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. But he has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go and tell the disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and they fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the service, the beautiful Easter lilies, plants, and flowers that you see are in memory of loved ones who have passed. And it's a reminder for us on this Easter morning that our loved ones who have died, they may no longer be with us in physical form, but our faith tells us that they are still very much alive and that they are with us in spirit. My own mother passed away back in 2013. It's over 10 years now. And I still remember that first Easter without my mother. I didn't know how I was going to make it through that first Easter without her. Now, my mother was not a reader. She didn't do puzzles. She didn't knit. What my mother did for fun was she cut coupons. She was the coupon queen. She was a child of Italian immigrants from the Great Depression, so she really loved saving money. And so every Sunday, she'd take the newspaper and she'd cut all the coupons. And she would even cut coupons for items that she herself didn't buy. And what she would do is she would leave them on the grocery store shelves next to the items for other people to find and to use. Well, on the week leading up to that first Easter without my mother, I was in a grocery store on a very long checkout line. And someone tapped me on the shoulder. And I turned around, and it was an elderly woman handing me a coupon. And she said to me, "Young man," I was young back then. She said, "Young man, I notice the cereal that you're buying, I have a coupon for it." Now, no one had ever done that to me in all my years of grocery shopping. And when I reached out to get the coupon from her, I looked into her eyes. And this may seem strange, but I really felt like my mother was present. Now, the woman didn't look like my mother, but just looking into her eyes, I felt my mother's presence. It was so real, so palpable, so undeniable. I share that with you this morning because that's really what the Easter message is all about. And I know that there are so many of you who have similar stories to this, that after a loved one passed, you felt their presence. You received a sign from them that was so real. If we took a wireless microphone and we passed it around the church this morning, and a few of you shared those stories, oh, that would be the perfect Easter sermon. Because that is what Jesus' loved ones felt. After Jesus died, they felt his presence in a very real way. It was undeniable. And they came to understand that death is just an illusion. That our light, our life lives on. We have eternal life. The light cannot be extinguished. Now, I've shared with you before how nobody really knows for sure the exact date that Jesus died. And so what the early Christian church decided to do was they said, we'll celebrate Easter on the first Sunday after the first full moon of the spring equinox. And that's why Easter changes every year. It can be as early as March 22nd or as late as April 25th. So we here are March 31st celebrating Easter, but next year, Easter's going to be on April 20th, a full 3 weeks later. I don't know about you, but I really love that. I love that the early church fathers decided to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus at the time of the resurrection of creation. So we look around and we see what's happening in springtime. The trees and plants that appeared dead in winter are coming back to life. We see them popping up out of the ground. The Christian reformer Martin Luther said, God has written the promise of resurrection not just in books alone, but in every leaf in springtime. And that's so true. Every leaf, every budding flower, every tree, it's speaking to us of resurrection, that God is alive. God is alive with us and within us. It is what the women discover at the tomb that morning. And I have to say, I love that it is the women who are the first to discover the risen Christ and proclaim the good news, the gospel, to everyone. You know, Jesus had women disciples, and many of them were leaders in his ministry. And here we see them as the first to get to the tomb and to discover that he is risen. Now, we're reading from Mark's gospel this morning, but in this version of the story in John's gospel, Mary Magdalene is weeping outside of the tomb, and a man says to her, "Why are you weeping?" And she has a conversation with the man, not realizing that it was Jesus, because it didn't look like Jesus. She thought she was talking to the gardener. She recognizes that it's Jesus when he says her name. He says, "Mary." And in that moment, she realizes that that is her beloved Jesus. My friends, Jesus knows us. He said, "I know my sheep, and they know me." And in Isaiah 43, God says, "I have called you by name. You are mine." Do you understand that during our times of darkness, during the winters of our lives, our times of despair and agony and grief, that God knows you by name, that God's presence is with you and within you? Now, oftentimes as a pastor, I'm asked if the stories in the Bible are really true, if they literally happen that way. So people say to me, "Pastor Sal, was there really a talking snake? Did Jonah really live inside of a whale for 3 days? And my answer is usually, I don't know. I wasn't there. And I don't mean for that to be a cop-out. I don't. The truth is that our faith is a great mystery, and we have to be open to that mystery. Some people understand the Bible literally, others more spiritually or symbolically. So I don't know for sure. But I'm going to tell you something that I do know, and I know it for sure. What I know for sure is that the resurrection is real. And the reason I know the resurrection is real is not because I read it in a book, not because someone told me growing up in church. I know the resurrection is real because I have experienced it firsthand. A man who died more than 2,000 years ago is alive in me. During my times of darkness and despair, I have felt his presence with me in a very real way. It was undeniable. When I enter into the darkness of prayer and meditation, in that darkness, I can feel his light, his guidance, his presence, and his power. That's how I know that the resurrection is real, and I know that you know that too, because that is why you're here today, and that is what we're celebrating. Jesus wanted us to know that not only was he the Son of God, he says in the Bible, you are sons and daughters of God. And Jesus didn't want us to know just that he was the light of the world. He says in the Bible, you are the light of the world. Jesus wanted us to understand that God's light was with us and within us, and the purpose of being a Christian is to resurrect that light within us. So, when we follow the way of Jesus, Christ is risen. When you show kindness to someone, Christ is risen. When you forgive someone who has hurt you, Christ is risen. When you welcome the stranger, when you lift up the lowly, when you serve the least of these in our community, Christ is risen. And when you work for justice and peace in the world, Christ is risen. Do you understand? It's present tense. It's happening now. So this morning on Easter, we're not only remembering an event that happened 2,000 years ago, the resurrection of Jesus, we're also reminding ourselves to resurrect that light that is within us so that we can bring it to this world that's in darkness, this country, this world that is so divided. We are called to be people of light. That's what it means to be Easter people. It means we are the people of light. And so, my friends, on this glorious Easter morning, let us awaken, let us arise to more and more of that light within us. And then let us go and shine that light for all the world to see so that we can help bring about the kingdom of heaven right here on earth. May it be so. Well, we are so glad and grateful that you joined us this morning for our Easter morning worship. If this